and welcome to Talking with Famous People After Dark. I'm your late night host Eric. I know it's only 10 p.m. right now, but I'm anticipating the stream will go for a while. I do have a soccer game I want to watch, but it's not till like midnight. Got it very late in the day today, like 2 p.m. So, anyway, my main topic that I want to discuss here today is mysterious drones over Mariposa. As I'm sure you all know, I live here in Mariposa County, near Yosemite, in the middle of California. And um, when Corey was here visiting, one evening, Rachel and Corey and I took a walk, and Rachel saw something in the sky that was unusual and said, "What's that?" And we watched it for quite a while, and it was three colored lights blinking, going up and down, more, staying in generally the same area, but not staying still exactly. And we concluded after thinking about it for a while that it was a drone. Hi, my beautiful wife. So, of course, after that occurrence, I started going outside. I've been up late lately, so I've been going outside often in the middle of the night, looking up at the skies, and like every night, I see like four. Like, last night was just Saturday night, so maybe drone aficionados are out doing their thing, but um, see like four of them, you know, two, one, different times. Last night I saw, for the first time, I saw what was clearly a drone, but a bigger kind of drone, probably, or two drones that were programmed to link to each other in terms of behavior. It was flying across the sky from that way to that way, right? That's the first time I've seen a drone doing that. All the drones I see are in staying over one general area and potentially staying there for quite a while. Early this morning, I noticed that thanks, it's my purple, it's this horrible purple, like fake velour jacket that I got from my dad. Um, 4 a.m. They all take off. There's no more, like right around 4 a.m. Like at 3:20 or whatever. There's like I could see like three or four of them. Um, they're not like right over my house or anything. They're off that way and that way, which is to say those are the directions I can clearly see where I don't have a lot of trees blocking my path. My what do you call it? View. So anywho, I'm hoping as the night gets a little bit later, to be able to go outside and actually show you some of these things. But who knows? I mean, maybe tonight I'll go out there. There won't be any. I also last night saw Starlink going overhead, and it was as clear as you could. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was like there's a string of 21 small blue lights, clear as day, moving right across the sky. Because it's dark out here, so we don't have any light pollution really compared to the city anyway. And the night sky is the night sky in all of its night sky glory. Uh, and what I discovered is there's a lot of stuff going on in the sky. When I first got here, one of the things I noticed was how comparatively little air traffic there is to Los Angeles. How much more rarely planes fly over us, and how we don't ever hear helicopters. Although I have heard one on one occasion, but rarely. but there does seem to be a lot of drone traffic in the sky. Now, I've got multiple hypotheses for this sort of thing occurring. Like, for example, I don't know what the regulations are. Of course, I could research it. I've done some research on the subject, and I'm having trouble finding answers to the exact questions I have, kind of. Anyway, I was thinking there could be some sort of regulation that allows more, that makes it more legal to fly at night, in the middle of the night or something, for privacy issues. I could conceive of somebody coming up with looser restrictions when privacy issues are less of a concern. In other words, when people aren't out and about, potentially. And the thing is, what I do is I see these drones. They're over what appears to be both Mariposa County, that way, and Madera County, that way. I can't really see due south, due north because I don't have any view from my house anyway. I'd have to go somewhere nearby to get a better view. And if I was able to live stream while doing it, I would actually go out in the little wilderness car to a high point that I know about out there and look for drones there. I probably will do that at some point, but I kind of, before I do something like that, I'm thinking about getting some kind of setup that is designed to record the sky, like a telescope with a recorder or something like that, like a video. A telescope that records video of what it sees. I don't know if they make such a thing. I just started thinking about this, so I haven't looked into it much. But I definitely would like to have a telescope because I want to look at those things that I think are drones as up close as I can, even though it's night. They have lights on them, so I should be able to see them. It seems like such a curious thing to have be occurring that I'd see. I mean, it could just be that I've gotten incidentally, like, happenstance, when I go out and look, there happen to be some there, but any extrapolation from that about the times when I don't go look, there are actually none there the rest of the time, and it's not really that many drones or something like that. That's certainly possible, but I just don't understand why I would stay in the same general area for such a long time. I mean, I get that it might be somebody might be watching a screen. Let's say it's got an infrared camera on it. It couldn't be regular night vision because the lights on the thing would mess that up, I think. But I could be wrong about that. It could be suspended beneath it or something. Who knows? Anyway, you see somebody watching a screen and trying to survey this whole general area. Maybe the thing's being still, but they're moving the camera, panning the camera around, for example. That's plausible. Various reasons why they'd want to stay in one general spot for such a long time. But, like, multiple instances of this, multiple nights, like, what could they possibly be doing? And who is it? Is it just a person with a drone who just wants to fly it around at night and see what's going on out in the woods? That would seem perfectly reasonable to me. But I just wouldn't think there'd be that many people who were into that, Where is Rachel right now? She's right there. Through the wall where my finger's pointing, all the way through the hall, through the other wall, and into the bedroom. She's in bread. Bread was affirmed by Bed and Bread magazine as the best bread in all of human history. So that's pretty high praise from Bed and Bread magazine. they don't just hand out awards willy-nilly. Odd stuff's happen in national parks. Well, yeah, that's what I've heard plenty of that stuff. But my 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 guess is that ultimately this will prove to be just a phenomenon linked to living someplace where you can fly drones. Because we're far away from air traffic stuff, like central air traffic, main air traffic stuff, and main commercial air routes, I think you're allowed to fly drones here more than you are other places. So it may just be that, it may be nothing more than that. But and it is the tourist season, right? It's like the busy season. So it's conceivable that this is a place where people go to fly their drones that they can't fly in the city where they live, right? And for some reason they do it in the middle of the night from like midnight or 11 p.m. to like 4 in the morning. I don't know. Are they flying during the day? Well, I'm not sure because it's probably easier to spot, I'm assuming, a drone with lights on it against a black sky than it is to spot a black drone against a light blue sky, right? But I haven't really looked much during the day. Regardless, yeah. The woods, the national parks, whatever, they kind of, you could say, exist to be spooky. Eric, why do you have to be such a schmerrick? God. I've talked to you about this before, Eric. You just stop being such a schmerrick. Okay, there. So of course, when I put my microphone on, I had to make it stuck around my neck glasses thing because objects and I just don't get along. I dropped my cigarette. I'm holding too many things in my hands. It's a nightmare. Okay, all I was trying to do was put on my glasses. Yes, I did debate in high school. Policy debate. All I was trying to do was put on my glasses, and I had this clusterfuck of problems dealing with objects. And this stupid lavalier mic that's got a cable on it for some reason. Oh God. Yeah, obviously I need to get a cordless one. So I've been playing around with some music stuff lately. Getting used to my new gear, incorporating it into stuff. I was smart today and taking advantage of work already done, I have this massive stack of various beats that have maybe one part of thing with them, and then just got tossed aside because I wasn't thrilled enough with it, And I compiled a like 35-minute long track. It goes from beat to beat to beat to beat to beat. I just fucked around on the guitar. It wasn't so much I was happy with anything that came out of it as I feel like I've got a good grasp now on how to record the guitar. it could be a little bit persnickety and clipped in some instances, you know. I'll show you my cigarette so that you have something to look at. I felt like I did a good job with that. And I also figured out how to make it such that I can have one headphone going out of, say, the monitor headphones from the sound card, or the headphone out from the bass head, and then have the other headphones coming from the laptop, which like has the beat on it or whatever, and I have a combiner thing, and then I combine those two quarter to, both of them are quarter to eighth inch. I combine those two things into an eighth inch combiner, and then I use one set of headphones, and it's like I got a mix. I can control the mix even by adjusting that either the, well, I can if it's on the sound card, I can turn up and down the headphones on that, so I can adjust the mix. If it's coming out of the bass, I'll have to see. I haven't done that yet, but anyway, I'm realizing that like having some equipment to actually do the job you're trying to do is kind of fun. It makes things a lot easier. And it just takes a little bit of TE to get used to all these things. I might even bust out the PA at some point, but I should probably set up a music room. I really need to do that at this point too. For example, potentially upstairs is a place that I could conceivably set up a music room. And I just go up there to make music. There's no reason not to do it. And I should just pull the trigger now and start working on doing that, because it's inconvenient to try to do it in the living room. I'm starting to get too much stuff to move around, yada yada. Well, I don't see any drones out now, but that's not surprising. They don't seem to come out until a little bit later than this. It is also Sunday night, so maybe we won't have any drone action tonight. That's always plausible. Okay, let's return to the inside of the house, shall we? It's a pretty moon tonight, if you can see through the trees there. Let's see if I can get it. That's the moon through the trees. Well, I don't know if you can see it or not, but whatever. It's a moon. You've seen moons before. Specifically, it's Earth's only moon. Being an only moon, of course, it's a little bit spoiled. It was kind of coddled by its parents and kind of irresponsible and stuff. So. But not only is it an only moon, it's the only moon we have as well, so we're just going to have to deal with it as it is. But we have to love the moon for who the moon is, okay? Not who we want the moon to be. That's not fair. That's no moon. Excellent. That's one wonder point for you, Fly Guy. Is it Tuesday? Is it Tuesday? No. I mean Wednesday. No, it's not Wednesday, so you don't get double. You don't get double wonder points. Yes, the blue room equals the new music room. But we're going to have to do something with that bed. I guess for the time being, we could, I could put it up in the attic, probably. Um, C.S. Joseph calls himself a psychic. Uh, we didn't spread back when I was in high school, actually. Spreading came into popularity shortly after I stopped competing in debate. Uh, because, of course, remember back in 1988, there was no flashing your case over, anything like that, no laptops. Everything was paper. And you brought in tubs, evidence tubs with physically cut cards. Like cutting cards, the reason it's called cutting cards is because it used to be what you'd do is you'd get magazines and stuff that had articles about debate kind of stuff in them, and you'd physically cut out the article and glue it onto a piece of paper and then highlight the part that you wanted to read. That's how you used to cut cards in the olden days. So anyway, yeah, spreading LD had just come into being sometime within 10 years of me doing debate, like maybe 10 years earlier, and was not yet popular. Uh, More or less, there was one form of debate. It was policy debate. And it was policy debate, as I understand it, done properly, which is, um, you know, you had to you had to uphold on all the stock issues, and and then all of the elements of your plan had to withstand neg scrutiny, and you can win the round simply by saying they didn't meet their AF burden, or by negating only. You didn't have to create offense on neg to win debate rounds, as you shouldn't have to. Um, and like back when I debated, if you were an AF, you had to have a funding plank for your for your advocacy. You had to say where the money was coming from. In fact, nobody ever has a funding plank anymore in any debate app. How ridiculous is that? Psychic. I'm psychic too. My psychic powers are telling me that C.S. Joseph is a charlatan. I don't have any psychic powers, but what I do have is a little sparkle of magic deep in my heart. And as long as you have a little sparkle of magic, then the world is your oyster. Now, if you're a smart person, you don't want an oyster. But good news, you can trade your oyster for something you do want. Because in this metaphor, we're all at the oyster exchange and trading emporium. So, yeah. So anyway, I'm curious about these drones. I got to keep gathering data to see how many of them, how frequently they come around, etc. But the one I saw that flying across the sky, the things were evenly spaced apart. They stayed evenly spaced apart. So it could have been a single wing thing with lights on both ends of the wings, but not big enough to be a plane, obviously. It wasn't that high up. Or it could have been two linked uh, drones. And it had the classic three color light of drones, and they went right across the sky, meow, 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 from over there all the way over to there until I couldn't see them anymore. That's the first time I've seen any drones going anywhere, right? From all the drones I've seen so far, none of them are going anywhere. They all appear to be attempting to stay in one spot and having to adjust periodically, maybe moving up a little bit more, or getting back to where they originally were, or maybe drifting over to the left a bit and then coming back or whatever. Most of them seem to have the three colored light thing. Some of them just have white light, and some and either blinking or not. I mean, they're in different parts of the sky, Mr. Bobby. Right? It's like I can only see certain patches of the sky, but I see them over there and over there. So unless the chick's house is like 15 to 40 miles long, then that doesn't make any sense. I mean, the guess that makes as much sense as any for me is you've got squatchers. You know, people looking for weird shit in the forest by putting up shit up at night with night vision or infrared cameras on it. I mean, the other thing is, who knows uh, how many drones there are up there that don't have any lights on them that I can't see at all at night, right? Because I know regulations require you to have lights on your drone if you're flying it at night. But what I don't know is how easy it is for authorities to enforce that if you violate that rule. Like, does every drone come equipped with something that sends its location, etc., working, functioning capacity, etc., to like the FAA or something? I have no idea. So, I mean, it's occurred to me that it would be fun to get a drone and fly it over the woods, but it didn't occur to me to fly it at night. Who don't I jive with? C.S. Joseph? I don't. I don't jive with him, but I also don't really jive with anybody. Okay, I try to avoid jiving because, frankly, I think for somebody like me to talk jive is probably racist and or possibly just ill-advised attempted humor or something. So that's why I don't usually talk jive talk. But C.S. Joseph, you may find him enjoyable. That's fine. But I find him insufferable. I get it. A lot more people find me insufferable than find him insufferable. Good thing we don't measure sufferability by voting. Tiny fly drone, spy on your window. Tiny fly drone, spy on your life. The thing is this. If anybody were going to... Sorry that I disconnected for a second because there was a Google verification thing. I mean, what did I call him? I called him a charlatan. There is no link. You obviously can't post links here. Well, look, I'm not saying he necessarily doesn't believe his own his own confusion, you know. He may be genuinely confused, believe he knows what he's talking about, etc. Yeah, of course. Um,
People from charlatans are called charlatans. I was wondering, what are people from Mariposa called? Maraposites. I mean, the thing is, uh, moderators can post links. Obviously, you'll never be a moderator here. You know, I'm not going to facilitate your attempts to defame, attack, whatever me. So just please go away and leave me alone. I mean, the thing is, if you are typing people really quickly, right, and you could potentially use a couple of quick heuristics to increase your odds if you knew what you were doing really well, right? You could increase your odds to better than 1 in 16 for sure, right? Um, but the point is, guessing someone's type at considerably less than 100% accuracy is not a good service to provide, especially if you're presenting your guess as though you're certain about it and that others should adopt that your intuitive yeah um, as their understanding of that person's type. There's your problem, right? There's nothing wrong with doing that for yourself for fun, but if you're presenting it as this is definitely his type and you should think so too, then you have no business doing anything in typology. That's not how to do things seriously. It's like, imagine a psychiatrist uh, watching 15 seconds of footage of somebody and saying, bipolar mania. It's irresponsible, right? He offered an $80 lifetime fee to access some of his resources. Well, I mean, I tried to put together a membership thing where say, okay, members can have access to all the resources, but really everybody can access them for free, of course. Because I don't begrudge somebody trying to make money off YouTube, trying to make a business out of shit and stuff. It's just I find it ridiculous because if you're going to be that much of an expert that sells materials, etc., then shouldn't you be willing to answer questions about why meow makes sense or doesn't make sense? Rather than just say, oh, you got to read the book that I read or something like that. I mean, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with jumping to an intuitive conclusion about what type somebody is. It really depends on how you present what you're guessing at. If you present it as what it is, a guess based on a couple of things, with the caveat that you can't really know a person's type without interviewing them, doing the full process and trying to, cross check things. With that caveat, then it's fine. But I know he's not doing it like that. He's presenting it as though he knows for sure, and he's such a good typist that he can type people before they even are out of the womb. Yeah, it just needs disclaimers, and most importantly, it needs the person who's purporting to be an expert to be uh, intellectually accountable, as anybody purporting to be an expert should be. They've got to be willing and able to answer questions as to why what they're claiming is correct. Otherwise, you shouldn't afford them any legitimacy. Yeah. Like people bust my chops for challenging someone's identity with type police. He'll tell you, you'll pay him a bunch of money. He'll tell you based on just a couple of minutes of conversation, you're definitely this type, and then spend the rest of the time lecturing you on what you should do, I guess. I don't know. Regardless, if if you take look, I get it. A lot of people don't think typology is serious and important like I do. They just think it's fun like astrology. I wouldn't be I wouldn't be blaming him if he were doing this with astrology because I get it. A lot of people put a lot of time and energy into learning a lot of stuff about astrology. I might think it's nonsense, but people might want to pay for a detailed astrology reading and find that worth their money or whatever, and that's fine because you can't be wrong with astrology. It's like hopefully the astrology reading is highlighting positive things so the person feels good about themselves or whatever, but nobody expects and nobody should expect to be able to defensively sustain that a given astrology interpretation is better than another one. So if he were doing that with astrology, that would be fine. But he's not doing it with astrology. He's doing it with something that's actually a real thing. So if you were to go up to somebody and tell them, you're not a Virgo, you're a Taurus, well, they know for sure what their birth date is. They're not going to be confused by you or be thrown into any state of ontological distress because somebody's challenged their astrology type. But with personality type, he's treating it both like astrology that, you know, he can just make interpretations without doing any damage, like an actual system that he's correct about it and that you should listen to him, and also a a framework for goal setting or something. Since you're this type, you should do this. Well, because it does link to identity in a vastly more real way than astrology ever could, and also that it has no single concrete linkage accordingly, namely like a birth date. Um, People who are trying to find a map of who they are and why they are the way they are and why other people in the world are the way they are and to use that map to inform their being, you're doing work that matters a lot, that's serious. It's like brain surgery, not like drawing a cartoon of people on the beach with a big head riding a little skateboard. You've got to take it seriously. You should do no harm first and foremost, which means this. Um, if unless I'm very certain you're a given type, I'm going to have to qualify my typing of you. Well, I mean, I'm always going to have to qualify my typing of you with how certain I am, and acknowledge and try to highlight even um, things that are inconsistent with the typing I've given you. That if there are such things that make me have a little bit of uncertainty, because the correct answer for somebody's type, if you can't be sure in a responsible, deliberative fashion, is I'm not 100% sure. I think you're this. I think you're that. You know, but you might be this or something like that. So, um, the point is, I get my chops busted for type policing because I'm calling someone's question, they're typing a question. I mean, this fucking guy, if my to the extent that I cause distress by telling people the truth about their type, even if we were to imagine he was always telling the truth, he causes vastly, exponentially more distress, and almost never is he actually certainly correct. Psychosophy? I've not heard of it before. Attitudinal psychology? Is that um, like choleric, phlegmatic? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, people are best explained in all of their beings and doings that are not purely odd. Well, even those are best explained as an expression of cognitive function, a configuration of cognitive functions that expresses variance within a given type based on two factors. Number one, your particular experiences. In other words, if you live in a fishing village that doesn't have a fish, whatever type you are is going to have more nautical expression than it would in some other context, right? And then the second thing that colors your unique person as distinct from just an example of a type is your enneagram tri-type. And because that basically is a taxonomy of how you deal with the negative emotions that we all have to worry about in life: fear, anger, and shame. It's not a model like defensible typology is. It's not really defensible accordingly. But by my understanding of it, it's not at all inconsistent with typology. In fact, it can be explained simply as a taxonomy of possible FI attitudes, right? Oh yeah. Well, it's one of those things that's trying to. This is what I call, you know, stapled together abortions. Like human design is stapled together abortions. They take a bunch of bits of stuff from a bunch of things that each fails independently to explain human beings. And they think if I staple all these abortions together, I'll have a living baby. It's a terrible idea, okay? Um, Now, this thing you're talking about here, physic, emotion, volition, logic, they're just trying to repurpose like SEF. Um, I mean, like, I don't know what they would call volition logic, but the thing is, Jung got it basically right. We just needed to clarify what these functions were and establish some kind of information flow mechanics so that it would be even potentially simulatable. And then gather a bunch of empirics by typing a bunch of people and proving that meow links to meow skill, right? Which I've done. I haven't proved it to anybody's satisfaction because I haven't put together some sort of published paper or something. But if you've heard me talk about it enough, you should be convinced. If you've seen enough times that, you should be convinced that, in fact, I have proved to any reasonable person's satisfaction, were they to do the work that I should do, um, that the cognitive function stack explains personality better than anything else, and that cognitive function blind spots allow us to convert a personality test into a skills test. It's kind of like the currency exchange spot there that makes cognitive function so revolutionary in money. Is normally you can't do anything in psychology really that's not gameable because people adapt and learn from what has happened before. Can you articulate the intrapersonal harms by being wrong about typology? well, I mean, I can exemplify it first and foremost in Rachel. Rachel had taken online tests. They kept telling her she was an ENFP, and it was distressing to her because she kept reading about ENFP, identifying with some things, not with others. Her intuition kept telling her, this type is wrong for me. So then she hired me to type her. And I typed her as an ENFJ. And then we got together. We were there for a while, right? Um, and I got to witness her discomfort with being with the type ENFJ as she tried to come to terms with I am an ENFJ. I guess I'm a lot more like Oprah Winfrey than I thought because she has no access to her subjective epistemology, especially the knowledge function, to utilize to know who she is. Right? INFJs are um, probably less in tune with who they themselves are than any other type. And so the thing is, it caused her distress because her intuition was telling her that's wrong, but her 8 slot SI meant she didn't have a lot of conscious access to examples that might give me pause. Meanwhile, while she's periodically voicing distress about, like, or not distress necessarily, but like trying to reconcile this type with herself, I've been noting as we've been together various cues that tell me she's definitely not SI polar, and she's probably not an extrovert because she's actually quite introverted. And eventually, one day, I tell her after I'm 100% sure that this time I'm right, because after the first hour of typing, talk to you for an hour, type you. Um, I I wasn't as good at it then as I am now, etc. I'm not too mad at myself if I get you wrong, but if I'm gonna correct myself, I want to make sure I never have to correct myself again. So I waited like a full month of confirming this with multiple data points, of spending time with her. And then I told her, okay, I was wrong about your type. You're an INFJ. I didn't mention anything about it until that moment because I knew that the last thing I want to do is be like, actually, you're this type. Well, actually, you're this type. Actually, you're this type. I want to make sure I got it right the second time at least. So I've seen with my own eyes somebody struggle with not being typed correctly. On the other hand, if you get the opposite kind of person, somebody who's deeply in touch with their subjective epistemologies and out of touch with their objective ones, they can absolutely insist they're given type no matter how much evidence you throw at them. So it's their flip sides of the same coin, right? Rachel, in her objectivity, tried to make her understanding of self match what she believed to be the correct label because it came from me or it came from a test or whatever, and struggle with it. If I mistype an ESFP who comes in wanting to be typed as an INTJ, like that, what was that guy's name with all the hats? He was an ESFP almost for sure, and believed himself to be an INTJ. Well, if I mistype him as an INTJ, he's not going to have any problem with it at all because he's not using maps that way. He's he's feeling good about himself, knowing that he's an INTJ because that means he's a mastermind and right? So does it do him harm to mistype him as an INTJ? Well, it reinforces his incorrect understanding of both maps and type and himself. But I don't know. It's like, Club ESFP got upset one time because, uh, and said something like, I mean, this guy thinks he knows people better than they know themselves. Well, the problem for Club ESFP is I clearly know him better than he knows himself because I can tell he's not logical at all, but he cannot. So, will it do him harm to type him correctly? That's a tricky question to answer, right? Because it'll probably make him feel bad and or hate me or whatever. Um, but it's like with his attempts at humor with the laugh track. I tried to give him a little bit of feedback indicating that this laugh track was as gently as possible, indicating the truth, which is not very gentle, which is that laugh track is a horrible fucking idea. It doesn't work at all and should be axed immediately. If it's not funny enough to make people laugh without a laugh track, you shouldn't even be making comedy, right? Um, but I was much nicer than that. But as soon as I even indicated a little bit that I had a little bit of feedback for him, performance reviews. Let's see what that is. Hold on, I gotta get my glasses on. I got some feedback for you. Performance reviews. Okay, I just leave it on low. I could put it on high for a little while because I get it boiling and then I'll put it on low. I'm making a pot roast crock pot. So, what he knows about himself is that he's very funny and that his content's fantastic and that he's an ENTP and he's very logical. What I know about him is that he's not funny, the laugh track's a terrible idea, he's not logical, and he's definitely not an ENTP. One of the two of us is correct about him, and it's definitely not him. So when he's like, he thinks he knows people better than they know themselves, I do. That's what it means to be a typologist, fundamentally, is I can't possibly know you as well as you know yourself if you know typology as well as I do. But if you don't know typology or you're not using maps like that, right? You're not using maps top down like I am, but you're doing this weird thing where if I claim I'm this label, I get the attributes or something. Well, then obviously I do know you better than you know yourself. Because an objective assessment of whether or not you're logical tells us that you are definitely not. But you believe you are because you say you're an EHP. An objective assessment of you says you're not creative, clever, funny, or anything like that. Your attempts to be so are cringe-inducingly bad. But he believes himself to be creative, funny, and totally worth watching. Of course, I guess at some point probably the lack of empirical confirmation of that, in the sense that nobody wants to watch his comedy. The only thing they could potentially want to watch from him is stuff linked to TWFP drama. And it's like, I think he basically wanted to team up with me or something, but I didn't want to team up with him. And if he thought that, like, ENTPs like to join clubs and hang out with each other, he doesn't have a very good concept of ENTPs, because actual ENTPs have their own ideas and various things they want to talk about. They don't want to piggyback off somebody else's shit, Well, I mean, it backfired on him, obviously. Everybody wants, like, every teenage boy overestimates their capacity to hang and thinks they can beat up some 30-year-old dude who's a veteran of a lot of fights, and they learn very quickly, oh shit, I'm just a pussy ass kid from the burbs. Well, equivalent here, you know. I'm an experienced YouTuber. Not only am I an experienced YouTuber, I'm also a very experienced battler. Debate coaching, but also just in life in general. I'm always down to throw down in defense of righteousness, justice, and truth. Or me not getting my way. You know, it's just, I'm not the one to fuck with, right? It's going to go one of a couple of ways. It could go the Michael Smith way, where I give you sufficient rope that I can make kind of final determinations about you that that there may be a mental health issue going on, and regardless, you're all toxicity, potentially dangerous in a variety of ways, not necessarily physically or anything, but and I don't want anything to do with you, you know. So that happens sometimes, but somebody's got to be almost irredeemably toxic for me to just say, okay, this guy's been issued a formal permanent ban in all of his guises. I will ban him as soon as I have good enough reason to believe it's him. Because, you know, healthy people don't need that shit in their life. I don't need it. And it doesn't do anyone any good for me to facilitate him having a forum to vent his spite, you know. Like, this guy, unable to leave well enough alone, showed up tonight, tried to drop a link. But even though even I might be curious, I've learned better than to, with people who have an who display uncut spite, then the only thing you can do is just try to get them away from you as much as possible, cut them out of your existence as much as possible, because they're going to do whatever they're going to do. They might even be working behind the scenes against you, but you don't have time to worry about that kind of shit in life, you know? There's too much like beauty and happiness and fun and interesting things in the world to spend more time than is necessary dealing with somebody who just wants to be your enemy, you know? And of course, with him, though, there's obviously some issues like with projection and shit, because the way he's dealing with me is worthy of the kind of disdain that he directed towards how I dealt with Melissa Talk's issue. Even though, from all I can tell, he didn't even watch the video, you know? So he's clearly projecting some truths about himself that he can't come to terms with onto me. Saturday. I gotta clean up these cigarette butts over here. When I come out and it's dark, I just toss them in that general direction so that I'll pick them up later, because I'm not going to be able to make it into the thing because I can't really see it in the dark. And now I have all these cigarette butts over here. All right, I'll just clean them up right now. That's fine. You can do a little bit of cleaning, Eric. It won't kill you. Okay, cigarette butts. You go in there. All of you, go right there. You go there as well. Also you. You. You guys go here too. Are there any more cigarette butts? Is that one? No. I don't see any more. Okay, I think I got them all cleaned up. So I'm going to go ahead and award myself a wonder point for that. I think that's fair. And I'll smoke the other half of this last cigarette butt here, which is too big to just throw out, so I'll just smoke it. You want to talk about a Women's World Cup game that will really make you cream your panties. If you DVR'd it, as you should have, and you haven't seen it yet, I don't want to be the spoiler, but the Germany-Colombia game was kind of mind-blowing. Okay, I'm going to be a spoiler. So here's what happened. Germany comes in the number 2 team in the world, and heavily favored to beat Colombia. But Colombia comes out right from the get-go looking like they're hanging with Germany on equal terms. And after a while, they score the first goal. Colombia's up 1-0. Everyone's shocked. But the Germans are like, it's all right, we're fine. And sure enough, they kind of start to get on the front foot, kind of start to have Colombia have the ball mostly in Colombia's end of the field and threatening and stuff. But they can't score. Finally, very late in the game, they score an equalizer with like just stoppage time remaining. It's like in the 89th minute or 88th minute or something. Germany scores the equalizer. Oh, everybody's like, oh, Colombia is going to lose. And then, guess what? Stoppage time. And they start playing. Now all of a sudden, Colombia is back on the front foot. They're trying to be off on offense more, and they've got Germany on their back heel, paddling backwards, trying to play defense. But Germany's only got to hold on for a amount of time. And sure enough, there's like 6 minutes of stoppage time added. They get to 95, meow. I'm talking about their soccer, Mr. Bobby, not cocaine. I mean, let me finish the story, then I'll address your question. It's late in the 95th minute. Time's about to blow. It's about to be over. But Colombia is still working down in Germany's end and manages to earn a corner kick. And then it's past 96 minutes now, okay? So if it weren't for the corner, the ref probably would have already blown the whistle. But the Colombia corner kicker kicks it into the box, but like far from the goal, quite some distance from the goal, where a Colombia player makes the most amazing header to the back of the goal I have ever seen. It was such a long distance header, bounced off the ground, it was perfect, and Colombia won the game, amazingly. So it was a great game. Now, regarding this question, well, people always jump to that it's projection argument. So the anti-Nazis are projecting and actually anti-Semitic themselves? Well, for your question to be phrased correctly, you say, so the anti-Nazis are actually projecting and are self-hating Jews? Or the anti-Nazis? Oh, I see what you're saying. No, yours makes sense too. Never mind. My bad on the correction. Um, well, it's true that lots of people weaponize all sorts of pathology arguments. That's why I'm opposed to pathologization. I'm opposed to saying that because I don't like what you're saying or disagree with you or whatever, that there's something wrong with you. And projection is a very minor form of pathologization. But I'm trying to come up with some explanation for this guy's behavior, right? That makes any kind of sense at all. And I'm not one to weaponize pathology as an excuse for not having any good critiques of somebody. It is commonly done, you're right, not by me. So in this instance, it's totally fair and legitimate to say he's got to be projecting something because he's accusing me of behaving in a way I did not behave, namely that I harassed this woman, that I'm a bully, etc. Right? And yet he's harassing me and displaying using language consistent with a bully, right? So I have a good reason to think he's probably projecting. But I agree that weaponizing that kind of shit, like comments ago, my intuition was right. There's something off about you. That shit just, that's like Jeff Shine, right? But I'm not Jeff Shine the guy. I'm hesitant to even speculate, uh, you know, BPD or whatever. But it is curious. Jimmy Blaze says this guy is probably watching this right now and pleasuring himself because he's been so disruptive to you that you're talking about him. Well, I mean, I get that that somewhat happens unavoidably, but what you, he, and everybody else needs to remember is this is not the first spite monkey in talking with famous people history, and being periodically the subject, coming up in this live stream as a topic of conversation by inserting himself into it briefly until we move on to other topics. I mean, I he doesn't understand how many variations of Michael Smith are already long in my rearview mirror, and how quickly I and we will lose interest in the subject. The only way he can continue to sustain us talking about him is to continue behaving like somebody who's harassing a YouTuber, ironically. So regardless, the good news is the balance of the economy of the whole thing is too imbalanced in my favor for him to persist in it forever. He has to keep making new accounts. All I gotta do is quickly ban him. So, you know, he could lurk and try to pretend to be somebody else. I'm pretty sure Clubby SFP does that periodically. But whatever, it's like, it'll be the same idea with him as I deal with Clubby SFP. As soon as he crosses a certain line, I'll ban his ass. As soon as I determine it's him, I'll ban his ass. Regardless, at some point, he'll come up against the reality that his attempt to control what happens here is futile and pointless. To the extent that it's interesting and entertaining, yeah, I'll discuss it as, in this case, interesting more than entertaining. But I mean, in this instance, it's such a stark case of somebody with like unmitigated hatred and absolutely no personal linkage at all, as far as I can tell. So it makes me curious, like, what in the world is going on there? But this is something I've experienced my whole life. I've encountered people who, right from when they meet me, without any further, yeah, they just despise me. They hate me, and I don't know why. I'm not sure if there's a commonality between these people. If there is, I wasn't paying enough attention to enough different things to make note of it. And nevertheless, I've encountered them throughout my life. Guys, mostly, but occasionally a chick who, like, as soon as I say, hey, I'm Eric, they just start going, ugh. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't want to encourage or reward his bad behavior with the attention that he wants in general. But the alternative for me is to deny myself talking about what I want to talk about, which is allowing him to control things, which is not what I'm going to do. Is she? Is Melissa talks with Ghost of Yoon? That's funny. Well, I think what Melissa Talks maybe wanted to do at a certain point in this history is blame other people's doubting her type on me. That they were all just listening to me. That's why they didn't believe that she was an ENTP. But I think what she at some point has had to come to realize is that many, many, many people question her claim that she's an ENTP, call her out on it, and that she can barely make any content without having to astroturf the fuck out of her comment section or have it be filled mostly with people telling her she's not an ENTP. Well, I mean, Michael Smith did not come here at first to be part of the community. He came here at first to punish me for bullying Melissa Talks right at the gate. He was not even at any point open to the possibility that I had not bullied her. He kept and continued, as recently as the last time he was here, to sustain this false narrative that I had harassed her, even though I left no comments, sent her no messages, called her not at all, emailed her not at all, had no communications with her whatsoever. I mean, Club ANTP, who knows what's going on with him, right? It's like he apparently was lurking around here for a long ass time before he got me to engage with him directly, and purportedly for the purpose of pulling some sort of grand prank, but one of the talks is a monster. So much partisan, usually leftist politics, so much ridiculous emotional hysterics. I can't even fuck with her in the comments because I can't stand to watch her videos. Well, yeah, I haven't watched any of them except until and accepting the ones I watched for Type Policing her. I could tell watching a little bit of it, her content, just a little bit of it, that there was nothing of value to be found in her content. The phone call, yeah, that crazy phone call where the guy yelled at me for a while. Right, he comes off like someone who just reinvents the facts as they come together for him. Well, I mean, Michael definitely came in specifically after the Melissa Talks thing, specifically to scold me about it or whatever, or to take me down a notch or whatever. It's hard to say. There does seem to be some connectivity between the three of them, but who knows? Yeah, that was about that. That was about MT. In that phone call, he screamed at me and called me a rapist because I had made a type police video about Melissa Talks. Oh, you preached. Oh, no. Okay, Club ENTP. I don't know what's going on with him. I mean, the one thing I'll say about Club ENTP is he's very defensive, very much an 8. He does not respond to anything that resembles critique well. And, I was thinking, Rachel and I were watching a Naked and Afraid episode earlier today. And there was this lady who was clearly an ESFP on the show. And I could tell she was an ESFP. The first time I even thought about their types at all was when she said this sentence in which she included, she said, the location, our current location is very hot. Now, the thing is, that is textbook ESFP trying to sound smart because they're being interviewed and using a bigger word than they need to and thereby confusing things. She did it in another instance where she was trying to convey that she was worried about the rainfall because they were in a sort of a box canyon underneath a waterfall and it might flash flood, right? And she said, I'm worried the waterfall might become overbearing. The thing is, what it made me think about is how probably a lot of ESFPs suffer a lot of damage because when they're young, they say something kind of dumb, people laugh at them, and their solution is to try to sound smarter, but it doesn't work because she used overbearing wrong. She even used location wrong. What she meant was like, this jungle is very hot or this country is very hot. But in that context, it made you think, wait, are they camping there? Is she talking about this particular camp location? Obviously, waterfalls can't be overbearing. That's not the correct use of the word. An overbearing person, you might metaphorically imagine as a waterfall pouring on you, but that doesn't mean waterfalls can be overbearing. So anyway, it made me realize, like, because of our society's unfair, irrational, and inaccurate celebration of intelligence, this general thing that really comprises different kinds of skill sets associated with the N's and the T's mostly, because it's been affirmed as an absolute good, right? Like, being smart is good. And you've got this whole population of ESFPs who, when they're affirmed for being who they are and are happy, joyous, and free, are wonderful and like childlike in kind of the opposite way that I'm childlike. And they don't need to be smart, right? And they don't need to use big words. And that's not their forte. There's no reason for them to be expected to perform there, right? And instead, what you end up is with ESFPs are all trying to compensate for what they understand as a deficit in sounding smart, and only end up sounding dumber. Of course, it's hard not to laugh at dumb things people say sometimes. Like when Kendall read the back of the Trivial Pursuit card, answer to the golf question, Chai Chai Roderick Wes? How can you not laugh at that? But we do the human race a great disservice by normalizing this notion that your kids should be smart. Being smart is good. Being creative is good or something. Being who you are is good. Trying to be someone else is bad. And the thing is, you kind of have to put a caveat in there insofar as being yourself is good, provided you're not a wrecking ball, toxic, possibly damaged, and expressing that as toxicity in the world. Well, you might say, well, should they be themselves? Should they be happy being who they are? Well, that's a somewhat different matter because nobody should be pleased with themselves when they're behaving in an objectively bad fashion. And we can distinguish between objectively bad and not objectively bad. Just because something is not objectively bad doesn't mean it's good or even desirable or even deserves to be free from critique. It just means that, well, you might not like it. They didn't commit a wrongdoing. So if somebody's failing to make that distinction, attacking people in the name of justice, even though those people committed no wrongdoing, well, I mean, obviously, they're a long way from any kind of healthy, happy relationship with their own selves. People don't people don't express so toxically over so little unless they've got substantial barriers between themselves and actualization. Possibly insurmountable. It depends. I mean, I hate to say, like, I don't think BPD, I'm not saying he's BPD, but I hate to say I don't think BPD people can get better, can ever really be in healthy relationships. But I don't think they can get better and really ever be in healthy relationships. When you see somebody acting out like that, it's important to remember that, while they're dangerous people, they do a lot of harm in the world, as per Liz and Corey, as per Kimberly and me. They're fundamentally tragic figures. They're victims of child abuse. It's hard to keep that in mind when somebody is being as awful as they can possibly be. But nevertheless, I had a rough go with an ESFP chick. She ended up blocking me for being critical when I made some jokes on her Instagram stories. I was being playful, but she didn't take it that way, right? Well, if we remember that ultra subjective types like ESFPs, they speak to express who they are, you know, not to say things about the world. And so when they do say things about the world, they think they're expressing who they are. They don't understand claims as being claims in the way that I understand them. They understand them as being expressions of self. So when I suggested that Club ESFPs, we just call him Club TI Polar, when I suggested his last track might be a bad idea, he said, I think something about you is bad. That's what he thought I said. And I get it. It's like I'm as trapped in my paradigm as he is in his. The difference being, and this seems unfair, I don't, because I don't find there to be a corollary really the other direction, but it is the case that the world provides us with different kinds of situations and it turns out that certain kinds of attention are more optimally suited to those kind of situations than others. The problem is if you're TI polar and any eighth, there's no possible way you're going to be able to distinguish between situations that require logic and situations where logic's probably not going to be helpful. Because I'm so mapping, I can at least note, okay, this scene requiring a lot of emotional care is out of my wheelhouse. I am not capable of doing this well, and I'm blind to it, so I won't even be aware of how poorly I'm doing it. There's no equivalent for ESFP because they're not mapping types. The map never serves to inform them like that. They develop who they are from experiences, and their relationship with meanings is such that if it bolsters their self-concept as they're constructing it, then that map's consistent with their reality, that upholds under the prime directive. But then when I call it into question, the thing is, I'm not just disrupting on their prime directive, I'm saying your whole way of going about dealing with maps, which is how you make sure reality and the map are close together, is you think that if you feel smart and logical, then the map should say you're smart and logical. That's not, you're not really closing the gap between map and reality. I'm denying the efficacy of what's worked for you as a means of attaining the prime directive. Naturally, that's going to elicit a lot of pushback from somebody who doesn't even get that you're supposed to use the map to figure out where you're going, not drive around aimlessly and then go, see, there's something on the map. I knew where we were going the whole time. So it's like it's not their fault, right? It's unreasonable to me to expect Club TI Polar to. I'm pretty sure he's not ENFP because he'd be more map savvy if he were, right? Like ESFPs can be very map tactical. For example, when I try to ask him TI Polar questions, he's pulled a switcheroo and presented a TE question about getting across the river with a fox and the chicken or whatever, you know. So he's certainly very tactical about managing map usage in our shared experience, he successfully pushed me off of what I was doing onto other things, very successfully executing tactical map control. But as far as actually using a map to understand themselves in the world big picture, it doesn't really work that direction for them. They have experiences, and then the map needs to match their subjective understanding of those experiences. Well, one can speculate that there's some damage there too. I one's inclined to speculate that when one encounters such strong visceral defensive reaction to minor feedback about something he made. But that could just be reaching. I really don't know what's going on with him. I found that one video he made more recently about like after we had moved here and he was trying to characterize this house as a money pit, that I was going to burn it down, all this other kind of crazy shit. And I just thought, man, you just you just want everything to be horrible for me for some reason. I mean, I can't conceive of being like that. I don't know what makes somebody make a video that says your new house is actually garbage and you're so irresponsible you're going to burn it down and probably burn down the whole neighborhood and it's like I I have no idea what would make somebody do that. Okay, but feelings. So he was angry at me? So that's why he did that? I guess that makes sense, but I mean, I don't know. When I'm angry, I generally don't. It generally doesn't make me stupid. I gotta take this off. It's too hot. I've encountered plenty of difficult people by talking to Spanish people, from Becky to Tori to Chloe to Courtney to Countess, um, to Famo Hot and that Queen's Gambit guy. And I mean, the list goes on and on and on, right? So, being an SI type, experience really helps me. And having had plenty of experience dealing with this stuff at this point, I don't make the mistakes I used to make. No, he was trying to position me as being deluded and making terrible decisions in the wake of my father's death. Because it was after a video I made questioning the wisdom of insurance. So, it was the same sort of FI, aiming at my FI kind of attack that Michael Smith engaged in, which is trying to tell me, and Jeff Shaw too. Like Jeff Shaw left a comment the other day saying something like Eric's always high on something and really needs help or some bullshit like that, right? it's like I get what you're trying to do. You're trying to position me as a big failure on all counts, presumably so that I'll feel bad about myself. And I understand that that's textbook F style strategy, right? You know, to be expected. But what I don't understand is why they think they can successfully hurt my feelings with counterfactuals. If they know enough to research to be able to say this bullshit about me that's a piece of the truth, then surely they know I'm going to fill in the rest of the truth and it's not going to work in their favor, right? Like, and even if, you know, it's got to be purposed to hurt my feelings rather than convince me I'm doing something wrong. Because, like, when Michael Smith comes in and starts talking about how my dad didn't respect or trust me, well, that may be true, but we all got problems, right? Like, I don't get how that's supposed to work as an attack, really, because after all, um, I've I've already known that for a long time. In fact, the only reason they know that is because I told them. So that's the part one of the things I don't get is if they've researched enough to cherry pick part of a truth to use it to attack me, shouldn't they be able to anticipate that I'm going to use the actual truth to turn their attack into something that makes me look good? I don't know. The nice thing about living transparently and not having secrets and shit is I don't worry about people saying stuff about me. It's either a lie or I'm already out in front of it, you know? But I guess people who themselves people want to attack with what they think is gonna what would hurt them. So I'm a big believer in shaming as a punishment for bad behavior because it works on me, right? This guy believes strongly in attacking my FI because sex would work on him, I guess. But you can't shame me with my bad behavior unless I actually did bad behavior, right? Otherwise, it's not possible to get me to feel ashamed of myself because I've engaged in bad behavior. And you might be able to get me to be sad momentarily about the difficult relationship between my dad and I at the end of his life, but you're not going to change my self concept, obviously. Obviously, I've thought about it way more than you have. What am I getting from here? Oh, yeah, another stick. Wait, oh, no, wheat. That's what I'm getting. Well, I got more weed. I, uh, I went in the kitchen to get more weed, so I went in there. Of course, I forgot why I went into the kitchen. Did they come to get a poking stick? Ah, oh, wait, weed. That's right. So, good news, everybody. I made it back from the kitchen with weed. Now we can all pull bowls. Let's see here. They all go there, and it's the most rotten thing a person can do. How can you say that shit and still take the moral high ground? It's idiotic. Well, I mean, that's the superpower of TI Polar is inconsistencies, hypocrisies, whatever. They don't they don't understand things like that. It's not they view things in a very particularist frame, like this circumstance is always unique from other circumstances. There's no requirement that I apply the same standard across different circumstances, etc. He's growing. Who's growing? My penis? No, it's not. It's being very still and placid right now. Staying the same size comparatively. Oh, Bobby's growing? Well, it's because he's been taking Flintstone vitamins. That makes him 10 million strong and growing. Do you get one what? A bong rip? Yeah, you do. Nobody's getting shamed this time. I'm not shaming anybody. We began the conversation with talking about the mysterious drones. Probably it's not that mysterious. Probably there's a simple enough explanation for it. But since Rachel spotted a drone at night when Corey was here, I've been looking up in the night sky a lot more. And every night I spot multiple drones. So I'm not quite sure what's going on. What I find most curious is that, except for the one I saw last night that was clearly going from one place to another, most of them seem to be hovering primarily in one spot, except they go up and down a little bit, left, right a little bit, but don't seem to really be flying around, you know? And sometimes they'll stay there for like an hour. So, I mean, I'm not sure what's going on with the drones. No, I think I'll not shoot the drones, actually. But I would like to maybe get a telescope so that I can, if I could find a kind of telescope that has like a built-in mechanism to film what is showing you in its magnified image in its lens, you know, then that would be good. I don't really know if such a thing exists, but probably it does. I mean, the thing is, they're too high up for that, Suzanne, and they're not, they're not out at a good time for that. It's like they come out like at 11 o'clock or midnight, and they're busy between like midnight and 4 in the morning. Then they all go away at 4 in the morning. I'm ISFJ, and my best friend's ESTP. I think the FITI difference, you both are TI users. ISFJs and ESTPs are, no, they're not over my house even, right? They're not even over my house. They're over there and over there. The thing is, I can only really see a portion of the sky west and southeast. The rest I can't really see because of all the trees, you know? So, but I've seen in those two spots where I can see multiple instances of drones, not right over my house, not even that close to my house, some distance away. It's hard to tell how far away it is when you're looking at a blinking light in the sky that's appears to be at, you know, much lower elevation than a plane would go, but higher than a drone would go if it were filming something on the ground, probably. I mean, I flashed my flashlight at it before. But, oh, okay, Jimmy Blaze. I caught your 1125. You meant Effie. Cool. I sometimes make those kind of mistakes too. Everybody does. Sometimes I say, I mean to say, like, can I get a pack of Marlboro Reds? And I accidentally blurt out, penis, penis, penis. That's why so many people think I'm gay. I have penis Tourette syndrome. Every day, a different word, and I don't know which one it is until I encounter it. Sometimes it's the, and that's a long day, will be auto replaced with the word penis. If it's a uncommon word like anti-disestablishmentarianism, then I'm fine. But fortunately, fingers crossed, none of the words lately have been Women's World Cup related. Penis, oh God! Because I've been talking about the Women's World Cup a lot. They probably are infrared or night vision searching for animals in the forest. Yeah, very possible. Or, looking for Sasquatch. I would imagine, though, that night vision would be troublesome on the bottom of a drone that has lights on it. So infrared seems more likely, but maybe they could. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't really ever go on Facebook, Susie. But maybe I'll go check out your link. You already got your own Sasquatch at home? You are so lucky. All the rest of us are looking for Sasquatches so much. Although Rachel and I are pretty lucky too. We got to not just meet, but also take a picture with Sasquatch during the Butterfly Festival. And what I learned that day is that given that Sasquatches are 8 feet tall, and I was a good head taller than the Sasquatch, I must be like 9 feet tall. Unless it was a baby Sasquatch. But, you know, I know it had a full-time job, so probably it was an adult Sasquatch. Maybe it was a small Sasquatch. Maybe it was a Sasquatch little person. He was taller than Rachel, but not as tall as me. He was a lot hairier than me. Maybe I do have a shared ancestor with Sasquatch. Maybe, Mr. Bobby, I'm a separate evolutionary chain from human beings. I'm actually not the same species. I've evolved into a new bridge species called Homo sasquatchians. The thing is, it's pretty groupish to say we have a shared ancestor with Sasquatches because Sasquatches are not all the same. My grandpa Sasquatch Sasquatch, he's really cool. But my great aunt Sasquatchewan, she's a total bitch. So, not all Sasquatches are the same. Hashtag not all Sasquatches. I guess hashtag not all Squatches. Probably be better. Have a little bit more pop to it. That's racist, Bobby. Candy bars are racist. Okay? Oh, I got it. You, a white man, eating a brown candy bar. Uh-huh. Racist much? I agree, no jalapenos. Japanese people are fine, but I don't want them structuring my society. Ever since I learned about racism, I only eat white candy bars. That limits me just to that big chew thing. Otherwise, it would be colonialism. I don't want to spiritually hijack your racial heritage, okay? You know what's surprising actually is a small portion of the Japanese person's genetic makeup is, believe it or not, the Loch Ness Monster. They didn't get any of the size of the Loch Ness Monster, but what they did get from the Loch Ness Monster is a voracious appetite for fish. Japanese people, they have been introduced to beef and chicken. It's available to them, and they nevertheless choose to eat fish. If that's not 100% certain proof that Japanese people are part Loch Ness Monster, I don't know what is. No proof is, no, you could never be convinced. Proof could never be strong enough. Well, you know what I like to do? I like to huff the air out of a pufferfish. People don't know, but it gives you a little bit of a buzz. It's a little bit like nitrous oxide. You just got to be careful when you're huffing pufferfish not to touch their poisonous bits. You just got to kiss them right on the lips and just like that. It's kind of like pulling a bong rip. It's fun for the pufferfish too. They giggle all the way down back into the water. And then the Japanese come and catch them and eat them. But I gotta tell you, you want to know about a fantastic anime that somehow I had not gotten around to watching until just like yesterday, and I've already finished it, and I'm watching the movie of it now. Saga of Tanya the Evil is spectacular. OMG, it's so good. And I made a video earlier talking about, think what would have happened, how history would have been so different if the Allies had finished off the Soviet Union. Well, then I started the movie, and guess what? In the movie, um, Tanya and the Germans go to attack Soviet Union, and she's like, let's let's fucking splatter those commies. It's fantastic. Oh, Bleach is not good, Fly Guy. Whoever recommended Bleach to you is not somebody who should be recommending anime. Watch Saga of Tanya the Evil. That's fantastic. Yeah, you should make a note to yourself. Inform Jeff that his anime taste sucks and he cannot be trusted to make recommendations in the future, as confirmed by Eric, world's biggest otaku. And the thing is this, it's true what I'm saying, Fly Guy. I am the world's biggest otaku. I have watched just about everything worth watching on Crunchyroll. If it's got 4.7 or above and it's not some stupid, like gushy romantic girl cartoon, I don't really want to watch that. And I've already watched it. I started watching Code Geass the other night, thinking, you know what? I don't think I've seen this before. Got a few episodes in, and I was like, oh, I have watched this. That's how much anime I've watched. I watched more anime than everybody, all the people you know who like anime at all. I've watched more anime than all of them combined. You know, One Piece is not one of my favorites. Delilah recommended it to me, and it is pretty good. I have an unfair bias against it because I first encountered the dubbed version in English, and that's terrible because American voice actors do not know how to do anime. It's unwatchable. So I have rewatched it and started watching it again, and it's good. But according to Delilah, it gets much better as it gets going along. Have you seen Cowboy Bebop? I think I started to watch it, and then uh, it's been so hyped by so many people to me that maybe I was a little disappointed that it's a little dated. You know, I'm used to watching brand new anime. Like Saga of Tanya the Evil is gorgeous looking. Um, like the drawing is spectacular. The colors and everything is just beautiful to look at. But it's also just super subtly and intelligently done. It's a great concept. It's a great story. You find yourself rooting for World War One era Germans to defeat and to complete their invasion of France and and like Poland or whatever, and then they still haven't defeated Britain and the Soviet Union. And in the movie now, uh, they're fighting the Soviet Union. I never watch dubs. In fact, there have been a few cartoons and like English animes that are originally in English that are on Netflix that I have watched, but I put it to the Japanese dub, so I have Japanese sounding voices and English subtitles, even if it's originally in English. You can't do that on Crunchyroll, but you can on Netflix. So that's how much I hate watching anything that purports to be anime-esque, even in English. I cannot. If it's, even if it was made originally in English, I will switch to Japanese voice actors. I like the sound of Japanese over my cartoons. It just sounds like cartoons should sound. I mean, the thing is, I have not a super broad taste in kinds of anime. I'm not a slice of life guy. I those are just too slow for me. I cannot watch slice of life anime. Um, I can't watch anything that's too dark. That shows too much like it shows domestic violence or sexual violence or stuff like that. If there's too much of that, I really can't watch it. Um, I don't generally like sports animes, but there are some that I have liked, and one of my favorite animes of all time is Blue Lock, the soccer anime that was out a couple seasons ago. It's fantastic. I hope to make a second season of it. I'm sure they will. It's very popular. This one that I'm watching right now is season 2 of Mushoku Tensei, Jobless Reincarnation. It's got 4.9 on Crunchyroll, which is rare. It is tough to get 4.9 on Crunchyroll, and it deserves every tenth of a point that it gets. Um, I don't know what controversy there would be. This review by Dr. D-Rack from March 2022 says this would be about the first season of it, not the second season. But the second season is at least as good. It says one of the best isekai stories of all time. Don't be fooled by the controversy surrounding this one. I don't know what that would be, but it's a wonderful, uplifting story about adult themes, not a generic wizard power fantasy. It's about a man who ruined his own life through a series of bad decisions, turning into the kind of incel we all love to hate on the internet. Because no matter how bad we got for still, I don't know what that part says. We'd never be as shitty as that dude, right? Well, that dude gets a second chance, and that story treats his will to do it all over without making the same mistakes with a surprising amount of compassion and forgiveness. The compassion for people who are not, who are even, who even most tolerant and progressive types would dismiss, is one of the core themes of the story. His redemption and growth is not an immediate process. This guy is so right on the money. This anime is super fucking brilliant. So good. So emotionally rich while also doing its job as an isekai anime, giving you fighting, swords, magic, stuff like that you want. It balances the various elements just perfectly. And it's nuanced in its execution of the story, and I've never seen a show do a better job of character development before. The growth in this character is so paced properly, realistic, heart wrenching, and the way that they show like this guy is still this old man from his previous life or middle aged man, isekai, otaku guy, but he's he's increasingly becoming this teenager that he whose life he's living, and yet he's still having trouble shaking his self-concept as this jaded, self-loathing guy, right? It's incredibly well done. It's really brilliant. The Zom 100 Bucket List of the Dead, that's fairly popular right now, is good. It's entertaining, but it's not nothing like the masterpiece that the Jobless Reincarnation is. It's still not out. Fuck you, Crunchyroll. It's supposed to come out today, right? Well, it's not out yet, and it's 11:57. They got 3 minutes to get it out. Probably, you know what is going to happen when this happens? Tomorrow there's going to be a .5 episode. Like Zombie 3.5, recapping the first 3 episodes because they didn't make the deadline in Japan. Oh, it's time for football. Is it time for football? I have to see the schedule. I think it is time for football. Soccer. Women's World Cup. I have to do this too. God damn it. Women's World Cup. Oh, yeah. Oh, pleasure my sphincter. 12 a.m. Pacific time. Japan versus Spain. Now, that's going to be a barn burner. Of course, both those teams have already advanced to the knockout stage. Doesn't matter what happens in this game. They can lose, win, they're still advanced. So you know they're going to be playing more wide open than usual. And they both are good teams. Japan beat Zambia by 5 goals, Costa Rica by 2 goals. Spain beat Zambia by 5 goals, Costa Rica by 3 goals. So they're very evenly matched coming into this game. I don't need to worry about catching the very beginning of it because I like to have a little time saved up so I can skip the 15 seconds ahead. Um, Thank you for reminding me, Acacia. I really appreciate that. I've seen the ones I mentioned, Eric. Let me see which ones you mentioned. I don't see any ones you mentioned. Belladonna of Sadness? I've not seen that one. Yeah, I've seen Great Teacher Onizuka, a little bit of it. It's not my taste in shows. It's like uh, sex comedy, basically. Um, I've seen some really strange ones. Cat Returns. I have not seen that one. Like there's this one, I forget what it's called, but it's about a guy who rescues a merman from the river, who then begins living in his bathroom, and like I'm like one day he comes home and the merman has invited this octopus to hang out with him in the bathtub from the river. That one was just I don't even know what to say about that. That was just one of the strangest cartoons I've ever seen. I mean, literally the whole show, you know, you see him leaving for work or coming back from work through the door, but all took place in the bathroom. A strange show. Um, what other shows do I want to talk about? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to just go down my watch list and see what I want to mention. So I've been trying a lot of things that like older ones, I've, I'm so run out of. I'm so on top of the new stuff that's coming out that I like that it's watched the day it's released for sure, unless I'm out of town or something. I like Am I Actually the Strongest? This is kind of it's a, it's not nuanced and sophisticated like Jobless Reincarnation. It's more like Candy Isekai, where you get your OP main character, teens in a school. I enjoy it. I look forward to it, but it's not especially memorable. It's easy to get like mixed up with other ones. My unique skill makes me OP even at level 1. I like this one a lot. It's about this salaryman who goes into this world and um, meets this girl, and they immediately start living together, even though, like in all these cartoons, it's not, they're not like humping, maybe eventually, um, but she acts like a wife to him, and he is just so he he's been so starving for somebody to care about him. It's probably whoever made this anime. It's probably their life story. Terror and Renaissance, I just barely started. Looks interesting. It's about an attack in Tokyo, a terrorist attack in Tokyo, in which the terrorist ropes in this other person to either die or become an accomplice. I just started one episode of it. Sleepy Princess in the Demon Castle is kind of pleasant, but kind of boring. I'm on episode 6 of that. I've got some various things lined up that I'm considering watching that I haven't started yet, like Samurai 7, Saint Seiya. I watched the Record of the Grand Crest War, I believe, on Netflix, but I may want to start it to make sure I did. Uh, and there's boring ones that I'm on episode 3 of it. I probably will just quit watching this one called Atelier Ryza, Ever Darkness and the Secret Hideout, the animation. The Great Cleric is a new one. I like it because he's a guy who decides to become a cleric in this Isekai world, but in that world, all the clerics are super corrupt and require a lot of money for you to heal them, and so, but he's applying kind of conventional Western standards of, of desirability to heal people regardless of their ability to pay or at a reasonable price or whatever. So um, it's nice. It's pleasant. Jujutsu Kaisen's quite good, but not, in my opinion, 4.9, which is what its rating is. I don't think it's that good. Death Parade. Death Parade is one I've been watching that's kind of serious, kind of depressing at times a little bit, but is also quite entertaining and interesting. It's about a bar that people who died go to, and they get paired against each other, have to play a game, and not the outcome of the game, but what is revealed about their character during playing the game determines whether they go to heaven or hell. Sacrificial Princess and the King of Beasts is fantastic. Always makes me cry. It's very tender, but also interesting and like uplifting or whatever. Undead Murder Farce, another really fantastic new one. I think it's probably at 4.8, 4.9. Yeah, and I'm not calling bullshit on that 4.9. Undead Murder Farce is really cool. It's basically a detective show that I suspect is going to ultimately comprise individual cases that also comprise a larger case. And the main detective is just a decapitated person whose head is like who can't die. So her head is carried around in a bird cage by this other guy, and they solve mysteries. They solve like magic mysteries, like mysteries. Like the first mystery they went to, they're solving is it's done now. Is they had to solve a murder in a vampire's household. I like personally, but it only gets like 4.6 or something, maybe even lower than that. Is Reborn as a vending machine? I now wander the dungeon. As the title says, that's what the anime is about. This guy is reborn as a Japanese vending machine, and when people buy things, he can convert that into points, which he can then use to add certain features and stuff. I like it a lot. It's great. I think it's fun. Um, I'm skipping down through stuff that I haven't started watching, but have on a list of maybe I want to start watching. Next up, Black Lagoon. I'm on episode 8 or so of Black Lagoon. It's 4.8. Deserves to be there. It's quite entertaining. It's like an action movie anime in which a Japanese businessman gets taken hostage by some pirates and to try to steal the thing he's trying to deliver to somebody, and then he ends up becoming a pirate and helping them with with his businessman conscientiousness to become more effective pirates. It's quite exciting, actually. Sweet Reincarnation, textbook OP Isekai, where adult is reborn as a kid in magic world, except this adult, and when he was an adult, he was a candy chef who like competed in candy making competitions and stuff and cake making competitions. And he was reincarnated as both OP with magic and stuff, and to a lord of a an aristocracy guy. And his goal is to empower himself as much as possible to make candy and cakes and stuff because the world doesn't yet have like all the ingredients, right? Like sugar and molasses and stuff. So he's trying to structure shit so that he can facilitate importing Mia from Mia and stuff like that. It's pretty good. I like it. Um, what else we got here? Last Exile. I'm on episode 8 of that. Interesting. Kind of a Western style anime. Looks like it could have been made by like a Western cartoon studio of some sort, Disney or some such, But it's not. It's Japanese, but it looks that way. Um, Demon Lord Retry is not very good, so I probably quit that. I'm on episode 9. I got through 8 episodes of it anyway, but it's still not very good. Odd Taxi is very good, but hard to watch. It's too intense for me. Um, I watched Kamikatsu Working for God in a Godless World. I watched all the episodes of that. It was okay. It's pretty good. Let's see. I got through almost all X and Y, the escape room anime. And like by the last episode, I was just like, okay, enough. Things happening like it, all it does is present things that don't make any sense, and then go, but why did that happen? And not really provide you any answers. It's Chinese anime is not really worth watching. Hell's Paradise is fantastic. Everybody should watch that. Mashal, Magic and Muscles, fantastic. Everyone should watch that. Hell's Paradise is like fantastic, serious, just as Magic and Muscles is fantastic, kind of lighthearted, but not a comedy. Um, I got a cheat skill in Another World and became unrivaled in this world too. I enjoyed it, but nothing to it. I wouldn't recommend it necessarily. Eden Zero is fine, but it after they beat that one guy, then I kind of got tired and I didn't feel like watching it anymore. Why Raylena ended up in the Duke's Mansion. I liked that one quite a bit. Rokuto's Bad Girls almost lost me at the beginning of it, but it got better as the season went along. I ended up liking it a fair amount. Ancient Magus Bride is great. Um, Dr. Stone is fine. You know, if you like TE stuff. The Aristocrats' Otherworldly Adventure. Saving Gods Who Meh Meh Meh. That's good. I couldn't keep watching Monster Girl Doctor. It's just like it's just like soft core porn, except all the girls are monsters. But they all have problems with their boobs. They need to inspect them. Anyway, he has to do lots of inspections. He doesn't really have a lot of story. He just goes around with his assistant and touches monster girls. Good night, I love you too. Ah, I can't even smell it. How a realist hero rebuilt the kingdom. That was a fun one. It's like a pragmatist who was like ENTJ who uh, turns around a kingdom in economic trouble with sound economic policies. Someone to Another World was taking time, not good. A Galaxy Next Door is good, but it's for girls, really. It's a little too girly for me. My Life as a Villainess, all routes lead to doom. Loved that one. That's a girl cartoon that I loved. So not all girl cartoons are not up my alley. Some of them are. Let's see. There's a Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba. I didn't really like that show that much, even though I watched a fair amount of it before I gave up on it. A lot of people seem to like it, but I don't like it. Haikyuu is a good sports one. Konosuba, God's Blessing on This Wonderful World, is better than the sequel to it, which is the one, An Explosion on This World. The Tale of Outcast is pretty good. I haven't finished that. I forgot I have that in queue. I could watch that. On episode 10. It's pretty good. The Reincarnation of the Strongest Exorcist in Another World. I like that one. Attack on Titan, of course, is brilliant. Campfire Cooking in Another World, My Absurd Skill. What I like to refer to as online grocery. I really enjoyed that one. It was sad when it ended. Reborn to Master the Blade, From Hero King to Extraordinary Squire. That's an interesting one. It's about a girl who has no magic in a world that's full of magic, but she has magic science. In other words, she figured out how to engineer magic stuff that enables her to use magic anyway, and it threatens the social norms, and that one's pretty good. I like that. She's a good rebel character. I like her. Her way of politely middle fingering. I'm envious of her capacity to middle finger so effectively while being polite. Handyman Saito in Another World, loved it. ISTJ dies and goes to another world where they appreciate him and his utility. Saving 80,000 Girls in Another World in my retirement. Started out great, finished a little bit, man. I'd give it like a 4.5 or so, but I enjoyed it. Blue Lock, brilliant. Adventurers Who Don't Believe in Humanity Will Save the World. That one's quite good. Quite good. Chilling in My 30s After Getting Fired. That one's got more of like a smart, adult, nuanced story while still being a good isekai. It's good. Chilling in My 30s After Getting Fired from the Demon King's Army. Very pleasant, candy, super rewatchable. My Hero Academia. I've watched all of that. That's quite good. The Legend of Heroes, Trials of the Cold Steel Northern War. This is good, but you keep expecting it to like start really getting going, and it just never really fully captivates you. The Ice Blade Sorcerer Shall Rule the World. Good, solid, straight ahead, standard fare isekai. I don't know. The thing I was talking about, about the girl who middle fingers politely. That's actually called The Magical Revolution of the Reincarnated Princess, and I think, but I could be wrong. The Last Summoner, that was good. Focuses on a summoner class of magic user, and they're not respected very much, but he figured out how to do it super badass. What else should we talk about here? Let me scroll down a bit. Chainsaw Man was great, of course. Beast Tamer was good too. I might have The Last Tamer confused with Beast Tamer. Or Overlord is one of my very favorites of all time. Very entertaining. Legend of Galactic Heroes. That's is a spaceship battle show. It's good, but after a while I got tired of it. They have a lot of episodes. I'm the villainess, so I'm taming the final boss. I don't really remember that one very well, but I watched it all. Kingdom. Rachel and I both enjoyed Kingdom a lot. Kingdom's a good show. About basically an ESFP fighting guy who's from the poor side of the tracks, who befriends this INFJ king and moves up the military and gradually becomes a general. Eventually becomes a general. Black Summoner, excellent. Suppose a kid from the last dungeon, Boonies, moved to a starter town. I don't really remember, but I remember I enjoyed it a lot. Spy Family started out good and then got kind of boring. The Genius Prince's Guide to Raising a Nation Out of Debt. That's another one, or maybe that's the one I was talking about with the guy who uses pragmatic economic policies. So I'm a Spider, So What? One of my all-time favorites. Skeleton Knight in Another World is fantastic. Rising of the Shield Hero is a little dark, but it's good. Well, no, not that dark. It's quite good, but the character is very like, I gotta figure this shit out, and I'm under all this pressure, and you feel for him, but it's not very positive exactly. Trapped in a dating sim, the world of Atome games is tough. I remember enjoying it, don't exactly remember how it all went down. A Sentence of a Bookworm is very sweet and cute, and I liked it a lot. In the Land of Lee Dale, I liked it, but I don't remember it. The Strongest Sage with the Weakest Crest, that was pretty good. World Trigger is one of my all-time favorites. The World's Finest Assassin gets reincarnated in another world. I like that a lot. I'm scrolling quite down here. There's still a lot of... I'm Standing on a Million Lives is interesting. That one's pretty good. That time I got reincarnated as a slime, one of my favorites. I've been killing slimes for 300 years and maxed out my level. That was a good one. Black Clover, of course, fantastic. The Hidden Dungeon Only I Can Enter, I liked that one a lot. Regarding Zero Starting Life Over in Another World, I like that. Fire Force, one of my all-time favorites. Blue Exorcist, that's where my Thank You 39 shirts came from. And Twin Star Exorcist is good. Hunter x Hunter, Sword Art Online. Huh. Of course, not all of the shows that I've watched I put on the watch list. That's only for shows that I start watching new, usually, or if I'm looking for stuff to watch, and I'll put it on the basically to watch list, Okay, so I am going to... Hajime no Ippo is a good boxing cartoon. I'm going to end this stream, and I'm going to watch soccer. Thanks for being here. Love you all. And remember, when you're going to sleep, if you're feeling troubled, just think to yourself, well, Eric loves me. That's something. Good night.